Hello everyone and welcome back to my VMware vSphere 8 tutorial series. I am BB Patnaik and in this lesson we are going to learn about configuring and managing an ESXi 8 host. In the previous lesson we learned about VMware ESXi, its architecture, VM kernel and the role of ESXi in the vSphere environment. Now that we have already installed ESXi, the next important step is to understand how we configure and manage ESXi host. So let's get started. In this lesson, we will cover several important ESXi administration topic. Okay. So what we will cover in this lesson? We will cover DCUI, ESXi host configuration, difference between ESXi host client and vSphere client, understanding the lockdown mode, host ESXi host time synchronizations we will discuss, on understanding the what is NTP, what is PTP, configuring NTP on ESXi host, that will look, and finally we will discuss about ESXi Shell and SSH. Okay. So by the end of the lesson, you should have a good understanding of this important ESXi host management concept. So let's start with DCUI. What is DCUI? DCUI stands for Direct Console User Interface. Okay. So it is a gray and yellow screen. Okay. Whenever you install ESXi, after that you will find this screen. This is gray and this is yellow. Okay. It is a text-based interface provided by VMware ESXi. It is operated using the keyboard. So when we install ESXi on a physical server, DCUI is one of the primary ways to perform initial configuration directly on this host. So it is usually accessed directly at physical server or through remote management console like ILO, okay, DRAC. This is a tool, remote management tool from, this is from Dell, okay, DELL, Dell, and ILO, HP. These are the remote management tool to access this host, okay. So here we do basic setups, tasks like configuring the network IP address, change your administrative root password. Okay, we can restart ESXi server or restart system services using this DCUI. So let's look at physically. This is my ESXi host. We have installed in the previous lesson in VMware workstation. So let's just consider this is a physical server because we don't have physical server over here. So what we did, we installed the VMware ESXi hypervisor on this workstation. Okay, this is a type 2 hypervisor. So we press F2, then we will put the password. Okay, so here you can see configure password, configure management network. Okay, if you press enter, here we can see the VLAN option, IP configure setting, IP vPort setting, DNS configuration, custom DNS suffix, everything we have defined over here. Okay, then restart management network without rebooting the server. This is a provision over here. We can restart management network, test management network restore option. So whatever setting we have done, so we can restore from the previous setting. Okay, we can configure over here, troubleshooting option here. Here we can enable ESXi Shell, enable SSH. That will discuss in later in the section. Okay, restart management agent, everything from this DCUI console. So if you have an ESXi host where the management network is not configured correctly, DCUI is one of the first place you should check. Got my point? So we have discussed these things, okay? Let's understand an important difference between ESXi host client and vSphere client. These two interfaces can sometimes be confusing for the beginners because both can be used to manage VMware infrastructure, but sometimes it is confusing. Okay, so the ESXi host client, this is the ESXi host client. This is the host client can use to connect directly to an individually ESXi host. Okay, so here I have a one host, IP address 192.168.1.25. Okay, this is my host IP address, ESXi IP address. So I will manage this host using this IP address. Okay, I will put this IP address in web browser and access this ESXi host. So this is called ESXi host client. Okay, I can open my web browser and access the ESXi host client using this IP address. From ESXi host client, I can manage this particular ESXi host. Okay, individual means including its virtual machine, networking, storage, and other host level setting. I can manage over here. I will show you in practical. Don't worry. See, this is the host IP address 192.168.1.25, which we have configured in the host. So let me log in root. Okay. See. So this is called ESXi host client, because I am managing this particular host. This is host, okay, 192.168.1.25. So this is called ESXi host client. So this is the version is here. The version is 8.0 update 3. No data store have been configured this host. Data store here is showing 0. Okay, why? Because we have just installed the ESXi host earlier, giving 20 GB disk space. Okay, so because and I said that time that we will assign a data store over here. Okay, later we'll see. And you are currently using ESXi evaluation mode. This license will expire in 60 days. Okay, because this is a fresh install, we have installed recently and we got 60 days time period. After 16 days time period, this license will expire. Okay, so in the production environment, what we will do, you will, before 60 days, you have to assign license to this host. So now let's talk about vSphere client. So vSphere client connects to vCenter server. vCenter server provides centralized management for multiple ESXi hosts and the virtual machine running on those hosts. Multiple. Here we have one host. Okay. Here we have one host. Suppose we will bring another host over here. Okay. Two hosts. So these two hosts we can manage through vCenter server. Then we need vSphere client, that you will see later on. Okay. So I am giving an example. Suppose suppose here another host, here one more host, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let one more host. Okay. Here, how many? 1, 2. This is 1. This is 2. This is 3. This is 4. And this is 5. So we have 5 hosts. So if I have 5 hosts in an enterprise environment, I don't want to log in to every ESXi host individually. समझ में आ रहा है? मुझे वो 5 सर्वर में लॉगिन करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. What I will do? I connect to vCenter server using the vSphere client and manage the entire vSphere environment from one centralized interface. Okay, let's go back to our slide. Now let's talk about what is lockdown mode. Okay, so lockdown mode is a security feature that restrict direct management access to ESXi host. Okay, this is ESXi host. Okay, so you cannot manage directly to the ESXi host. The main idea is that instead of administrator directly managing the ESXi host, manage via vCenter server. So lockdown mode is disabled by default. I will show you later on. It is disabled by default. मान लीजिए हमारी डाटा सेंटर में 10 ESXi होस्ट है और सभी होस्ट को हमने vCenter में ऐड किया है. अब एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर नॉर्मली ESXi होस्ट को डायरेक्टली मैनेज नहीं करता है. क्या करता है? वो vCenter से लॉगिन करके vSphere क्लाइंट के थ्रू ESXi होस्ट को मैनेज करता है. अगर कोई एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर डायरेक्टली ESXi होस्ट क्लाइंट को एक्सेस करने की कोशिश करता है तो नॉर्मल लॉकडाउन मोड में डायरेक्ट रिमोट मैनेजमेंट एक्सेस रेस्ट्रिक्ट होता है. समझ रहे मेरी बात? ठीक है, ये एक सिंपल कंसेप्ट है. नॉर्मल लॉकडाउन मोड ESXi होस्ट को प्राइमरी vCenter के थ्रू से मैनेज करने के लिए वो कहता है. और एक लॉकडाउन मोड है जिसको हम बोलते हैं स्ट्रिक्ट लॉकडाउन मोड. ठीक है, इसमें क्या होता है? स्ट्रिक्ट लॉकडाउन मोड इज एन एडवांस सिक्योरिटी फीचर इन vSphere एनवायरनमेंट. जब स्ट्रिक्ट लॉकडाउन मोड एनेबल किया जाता है तो स्ट्रिक्ट लॉकडाउन मोड में DCUI अवेलेबल नहीं रहता है. DCUI, ठीक है, ये सर्विस स्ट्रिक्ट लॉकडाउन मोड में अवेलेबल नहीं रहता है. नाउ an administrator should not directly manage an ESXi host from its console. Instead, administrator connects to vCenter server using vSphere client and manage ESXi host centrally. This provides a higher level of security because direct access to the host is restricted. ठीक है, तो एक बात बताइए, what happens if vCenter server become unavailable? Since strict lockdown mode stops the DCUI service and it restricts direct management, we must carefully plan our recovery and access procedures before enabling strict lockdown mode in a production environment. ये चीज को खास करके ध्यान रखिए. ठीक है ना? Now let's talk about users accounts on ESXi host. The default administrative account in ESXi host is a root account. Okay, it has absolute control over host and is used for initially setup and deep troubleshooting. In vSphere environment, we normally manage ESXi host centrally through vCenter server using vSphere client. So VMware assumes you will eventually connect to host to vCenter server or Active Directory. Once connected, user management happens centrally from those tools rather than creating local account or individual account. Okay, here I will show you. This is if you log into ESXi Host Client, then come to manage, then you will find users. Here, what is mentioned? Root. It is administrator. Okay, I told you this is the default administrative account when you install ESXi host. What I told you before? Do not create users over here. Okay. Instead, you create user in Active Directory and manage through centrally. Okay. I told you before lockdown mode. I will show you here. This is the lockdown mode. Okay. Here, by default, I told you lockdown mode is disabled. It is disabled. Okay. We need to enable over from here. If you log into the console, you can also check over there. It is disabled. You cannot do anything over there. Let me show you. If you want to configure anything, we have to press F2. Okay. See here, I can configure password. I can configure management network. I can do restart anything, restart management network, but I cannot configure lockdown mode. Okay, because it is by default disabled. On ESXi host, root account is the most powerful user. Root user can access all files and commands securing the account. Most important step you can take the secure your ESXi host. Use vSphere client to log into the vCenter server. I told you before to manage ESXi host. If a host is a standalone host, manage directly. Avoid creating local users. You can, if possible, join the host to an Active Directory domain and log in with domain credential instead. Okay, I told you. An ESXi host should always have an accurate and synchronized system clock. Guys, you may wondering why we care so much about that ESXi host clock. Imagine you have 5 servers. Imagine you have a 5 Dell servers, HP servers, IBM servers, and every servers has a different time. Okay, if something happened, something happened 10 a.m. on one server, okay, and another in one server it is showing 10 a.m. but another server time showing 10:20. Okay, so every server has different time. If something happened in 10 a.m, okay, another server log showing as 10:20, troubleshooting becomes very difficult. Okay, that's why time synchronization is very important. So what protocol we are using? One commonly used for NTP. NTP, Network Time Protocol. It is uses over UDP port number 123. Okay. Persistent Time Protocol. PTP provides hardware-based time strapping for ESXi host and virtual machine within a network, and this is use port 319 and 320. Okay. NTP can use as a fallback. If PTP service does not work, that time NTP will use as a fallback. Here, ESXi host manage time and date. You will find NTP server. NTP server. It is showing none because we have not yet configured. Okay, PTP client disable, PTP status services, this is stop. Okay, so in production environment, what we will do, we will configure NTP server. We will go over here, edit setting, we will define NTP server over here. Okay, now brief we will discuss about ESXi Shell and SSH. ESXi Shell is a command line interface built into ESXi. It allows administrators to run advanced troubleshooting utilities and perform certain administrative tasks directly on this host. SSH. SSH stands for remote access. It allows administrator remotely access SSH over the network using SSH client such as PTP, and SSH normally use TCP port number 22. For example, an administrator can use SSH client such as PTP. PTP, what is PTP? It is a SSH client. Okay, now we will do practical and test this. Okay, 192.168.1.25. I am not able to connect. Network error. Connection refused. Why? So in order to access the SSH through PTP, you need to enable one service that is called SSH service. See, this is now in stop state. Okay. So before we connect SSH through PTP, you must enable this service. We need to start this. Okay. Now you can see it is showing in green running. So now we can able to connect. So let's try. This is 192.168.1.25. Okay. Let's connect 192.168.1.25. Yes, now we got the prompt login as what? I told you login as always root, password VMware @123#. Got it? Now we can able to connect this ESXi host using SSH client. Okay, here we can increase the font. Change setting, appearance, change, let's 18, apply. See, we can increase the font. Okay, from here if you type host name, it will give local host or local domain because we have not yet configured the host in our ESXi host client here. Okay, local host, local domain, we have not given the name. That will assign the later when we deploy vCenter server. Okay, no data store have been configured on the host. SSH host has been enabled. Okay, SSH enabling the host. You should disable SSH unless it's necessary for administrative purpose. I told you, whenever you finish your work, you just disable this SSH. Okay, if you do ls, these are the files. Okay, for troubleshooting purpose, I will go for var log. You can see here are the log files. These are the BMK summary. Okay, BPXL log. These are the different logs that we will discuss later on. Host D logs. Okay, here host D logs, very important. So everything we will discuss later on. So let's quickly summarize what we learned in this lesson. Okay. So in the next lesson, we are going to move one of the most important component of VMware vSphere environment, that is called vCenter server. Okay, that we will learn in our next lessons. So before we finish, I want to share something with you. वीडियो खत्म करने से पहले मैं आपसे एक छोटी सी बात शेयर करना चाहता हूँ। मेरा उद्देश्य इस YouTube चैनल के माध्यम से अपना प्रैक्टिकल नॉलेज स्टेप बाय स्टेप एक सिंपल और इजी टू अंडरस्टैंडिंग के तरीके से आप तक पहुंचना है। इससे पहले कॉन्सेप्ट को समझेंगे और उसके बाद जहां भी हमें पॉसिबल होगा हैंड्स ऑन डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन को हम प्रैक्टिकली देखेंगे। देखिए, VMware की जो वो ऑफिशियल ट्रेनिंग है, ये बहुत बड़ा इन्वेस्टमेंट है, मालूम है ना। जब कोई VMware ट्रेनिंग के लिए जाता है और VMware ट्रेनिंग ऑफिशियली VMware ट्रेनिंग, जब ह्यूज इन्वेस्टमेंट होता है, कई $US तक उसका इन्वेस्टमेंट होता है, और डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द रीजन, आप कौन सी रीजन सिलेक्ट करते हो, कौन सा ट्रेनिंग सिलेक्ट करते हो, ठीक है। सो मेरा प्रयास है कि मैं अपने प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंस और नॉलेज को आपके साथ शेयर करूं, ताकि आप VMware को स्टेप बाय स्टेप सीखें और अपने स्किल को इंप्रूव करें। इसलिए अगर आपको मेरी लेसन ये यूजफुल लग रही है तो आपसे सिर्फ एक छोटी सी रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं, कृपया मेरे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें। आपका एक छोटा सा सपोर्ट मेरे चैनल को ज्यादा से ज्यादा VMware लर्नर्स तक पहुंचने में मदद करेगा और मुझे आगे की लेसन बनाने में मोटिवेशन भी मिलेगा। So let's learn VMware together, step by step from basics to enterprise administration. Thank you so much.